Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We're also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are going over the NFL Scouting Combine risers and fallers out of the fantasy positions on offense. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But first, we had a flurry of league news out there. Jeff, what happened this past week in the NFL?
Man, we got a flurry of news, as you just said. We're going to start with the trades. We're going to get right in, right hot here. The 49ers trade wide receiver Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders for a 5th round pick. Alex, is this a good move, or would have you not done it?
I'm glad the Texans didn't do it because I know there's whispers of the Texans being in on it as well as a couple other teams. The Commanders makes the most sense for all involved. He's gets moved to the other side of the country from the Niners in a different division. And he gets to be the number 2 wide receiver on the Commanders offense, more of a wide receiver now than his usage with the Niners. So I expect him to be more as a slot wide receiver moving around rather than a gimmicky running back, a hybrid. So I think it's a good move for them. It doesn't look like they're going to rework his deal or extend him. It looks like a 1-year, see how it goes kind of deal, but it takes some pressure off the team from having to draft one early. Doesn't eliminate them from drafting a wide receiver early. Doesn't even eliminate them from trading for a wide receiver or signing one. But it is a nice move, and it was relatively cheap. They have the cap space. It was the most logical fit. So I like it for the Commanders.
Yeah. And so far, Deebo, for me, I think rates in the hues of wide receivers. I don't know how you feel about that, though. Where would you draft Deebo this year?
I like him more this year than last year, so I think that's a good range. I haven't quite settled where yet. I haven't looked that far ahead, but I think the boundary of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for fantasy purposes is more than fair.
I currently have him at wide receiver 41 below Jalen McMillan. So I believe McMillan is a better wide receiver than Deebo Samuel.
Do you think McMillan rises if Godwin doesn't re-sign? Is that already baked into you estimating Godwin stays with Tampa, or?
So this is as the rosters are now, which is Godwin off of the roster. If Godwin does come onto the roster, that will throw a wrench in McMillan. It'll put Godwin above them. And Godwin currently isn't above them right now until I see his landing. I think either way, Deebo would say the same, but McMillan could drop.
Yeah, I like McMillan for dynasty purposes a lot more than redraft right now. But if Godwin goes, then I like McMillan a lot more for redraft. Okay.
You'll get a kick out of this too. The guy that I have after Samuel is Travis Hunter right now.
It's so hard to predict Travis Hunter right now. Like, we have to see where he gets taken. We have to hear what the team that drafts him says about him, how he's going to be used. He has more athletic ability than the guys we just talked about. So he has much higher upside, but he might have a lower floor than people suspect coming into the league.
That is true. That is true. All right. This one will excite you, though, Alex, as you were just about to get to. The Jaguars trade wide receiver Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans for a 7th round pick, and they were just getting ready to cut him, actually. So it sounds like the Jaguars announced that they were cutting him, and the Texans were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't know if we could land him in free agency, so let's offer a 7th round pick and just make this happen right here. So, your take.
Yeah, very reminiscent of the Mixon trade last year when the Bengals were getting ready to cut Mixon and the Texans said, let's just get ahead of the competition before they hit free agency. and they reached out to a division rival and offered them a 2026 seventh round pick. I assume there's some conditions tied to it. We don't know exactly how the money is going to shake out. If the Jaguars are eating more of this contract, we don't know if the Texans are going to re-sign Kirk. I think he's only 28. He's a very high wide receiver 2 upside in the league. And then wide receiver 3 is where I put him in fantasy. I really like him. I was talking like a week or two before. I was chatting, chirping at people saying I thought Christian Kirk would be a good fit for the Texans should the Jaguars move on from him. And I even got local Houston guys to cut on it too. So that was pretty cool. And that's what it turned out. There was a lot of guys flirting with the next item here that the Seahawks are granting permission to DK Metcalf to seek a trade. They are asking reportedly for a first and a third, which is very high for someone who's on an expiring deal and wants to get paid $30 million per year. No one is coming close to that right now. A lot of people wanted the Texans to jump in on that. I know, Jeff, you at least offline have talked about the rumor and the proposed trade to send him to Green Bay. What do you make? I don't know if you've got to share your thoughts on Christian Kirk, but wrap up Christian Kirk for me and then talk about DK Metcalf.
Yeah. So Christian Kirk for me is an interesting piece. He's below Deebo Samuel in my rankings, my initial rankings, which will not surprise you. And I currently have him wide receiver 47 as of right now. So we'll see what the Texans do beside him. We'll see if he'll go up or down based. But he's also returning from a broken collarbone. So we'll see how his confidence is in his healed collarbone. And he is aging as well. So there's a lot of factors with Christian Kirk. We will see. I think he's 28 right now, but he'll be 29 in the season.
A lot of Texans fans are happy that his injury at least isn't a leg injury because I don't think we could tolerate another ACL happening right now.
Right. I think right here and where receivers get hit, like, is he going to have confidence that that's going to hold, or is that going to create some doubt? Because I know I would have some doubt if I broke right here.
Yeah. But he played his college ball at Texas A&M, which is like an hour and a half away from the Houston area, pretty much. So he's used to being in this area. People are used to watching him out here. So it's kind of a reunion a little bit.
We'll see what he does. We'll see if his skill set translates over to the Texans being a little bit more offensive focused upcoming year. But as you were mentioning with DK Metcalf, he's granted the trade, to seek a trade. The first and the third are interesting because that is being leaked by one of the sources. Not sure what side, and we're not sure if that's a way publicly to get the Seahawks to lower their asking price. Because I always say when something leaks out, one of the sides wants it to leak out and wants something from that. So be interesting to see, but as you said, Metcalf is signed through 2025, but he is going to be 28 this year, or he already is 28. And we know this is kind of where receivers start to see their downside, especially the non-elite ones, and I don't think it's debatable the last couple of years DK Metcalf hasn't been one of the elite receivers. But I think what the Seahawks do here, and I think what the Jaguars are doing as well, is they have Brian Thomas Jr., they have JSN, and they want them to be the number one weapon, the unquestioned number one weapon on the team. So you kind of recycle the old pieces, so DK Metcalf would be an old piece here, and I think that they can draft a wide receiver and pay him a fraction of what DK Metcalf will be owed or so. They're just trying to recoup that pick to be able to draft that wide receiver at you anything, like what the Vikings did when they traded Stephon Diggs. They traded him and then they drafted Justin Jefferson with that pick. So been done before. All right, anything else on DK?
Yeah, I think they priced him so high because they have no intention of moving on from him, and they're gonna say, "Oh, no one met our asking price." But would that stop them from eventually having to trade him? No, not necessarily. But I don't think that they want to actually move him. I think he's such an athletic guy, just a field stretcher, that he complements Jackson Smith-Njigba very much. And I think that's why they parted with Lockett, is Jackson Smith-Njigba overlaps with a lot of Lockett's ability at this stage in Lockett's career. And Njigba is on a rookie deal, and he's a much better prospect. Metcalf, they'd have to replace. So you'd have to get a decent value, and then they'd have to hit the draft.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's worth the headache on the team, and I wonder if they're coming to that conclusion as well, because he does speak up about his targets, speak up about his usage, and it's only going to go down with JSN being the unquestioned number one, and have him as the unquestioned number one going into this upcoming year. Currently, my wide receiver 6 going into 2025. JSN.
If you heard this, but Metcalf might be upset because there's rumors that the Seahawks are floating Geno Smith as trade option for QB. Needy teams linked with the Raiders of late, so he would reunite with Pete Carroll if that is in fact what's happening. What do you think that made everything murkier for them?
It's possible, but in October this year, Geno Smith will be 35. I guess that makes sense for a 76-year-old coach or 73-year-old coach, however old he is. Getting one of the oldest quarterbacks that are kind of at the peak of his ascension. Like, we're not going to get better Geno than we got.
Yeah, that would just be crazy. It would seem like the Seahawks are completely rebuilding if they get rid of their quarterback and their best wide receiver.
And it would seem like the Raiders are like 3 years away from completely rebuilding. I don't see that as a move of building a team, getting Geno Smith into the building for the Raiders. I don't see that as a positive move.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to do a 1-year deal with Russell Wilson and draft a rookie quarterback that Russ could coach up, that's a whole other situation. But getting Geno Smith on his $30 million per year deal, perhaps even having to extend him because the Seahawks are having extension talks for them currently.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a couple of Jets news back to back here. Let's go. The Jets have granted permission to Allen Lazard to seek a trade, and the Jets officially cut Davante Adams. Jeff, where do you see these guys going?
I mean, I'll still stay steadfast with they're both probably going to end up with Aaron Rodgers. My most likely landing spot for that is still Tennessee, which we won't know for a couple more weeks, I guess. But it's funny because Adams and Rodgers are technically free and clear to sign right now. Like, they have like a little bit of a jump here on free agency. So we'll see what happens. Adams might be a guy, though, that waits until like Chris Godwin signs. Because after Chris Godwin signs, he's kind of like the best thing left on the market, and that might drive up his price just from the sheer need standpoint. So that's my thought there. But Lazard has really no value other than like a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 on a team. He's just an Aaron Rodgers favorite that keeps recycling with Aaron Rodgers.
I think Rodgers is going to be 42 when the season hits, and I think that teams just don't view him like he views himself at this point, and only the Giants seem to be desperate, but the Giants don't seem like a team that would appeal to Rodgers at all because they seem right now a long way off from being competitive. Plus, staying in that area and all the taxes doesn't seem great. The Raiders and the Titans seem like pretty solid spots to potentially be competitive and pay them money and have lesser taxes and be able to fit in some of his wide receiver buddies. But as far as Adams, I think he might have soured the taste in people's mouths and how they view him because he forced his way out of the Raiders. How that went down, I don't think teams are like, hey, we really want this guy who will just give up early season if things don't go exactly his way. I know that there's a lot of rumors that potentially the Chargers or potentially the Rams could be good spots for him, and they have a need at wide receiver. I don't know if Adams would be the type of wide receiver that the Rams would want, especially with how they've been trimming their cap float of late, but the Chargers could be a good spot for him. Play with Herbert, be in a competitive team, that might be a good fit for him. Baltimore could be a good fit for him. And obviously anywhere Rodgers is, I could see him going as well. Lazard, I think people should stop entertaining this guy. Like, he's not it. Stop doing what Aaron Rodgers wants just because
I think
he wants
he's lost the power now, so there's
Yeah.
that.
That's another thing. No one else is going to kowtow to Aaron Rodgers anymore, except for maybe New York.
Yeah, but I need to disagree with you on Adams though, because the Jets were worse than the Raiders towards the end of the season, and he never quit on them. His biggest gripe was the balls that the quarterbacks were throwing were going to injure him. And I think that is a very important distinction because the Jets were eliminated from the playoffs and Adams was playing quite well for the Jets. So it wasn't out of contention. It was just he didn't want to be injured.
I think that Adams just knows a little bit better than Deontay Johnson, and he knows you can't gripe and force your way off two teams in the same season.
Okay.
And plus he got to play with Aaron Rodgers, so I don't think he cared for that reason. And Deontay Johnson, though, was it 3 different teams he was on just last season? 4 if you extend it to the Pittsburgh in the offseason. So his career is probably close to over.
Yeah, there's not many more places for him. But I did put it out there that the Raiders could bring in Rodgers and Adams again, and you're like, no, he burned the bridge. But literally the only person that's left from the Raiders is Mark Davis from last year, and everyone else is brand new, cycled back in there. So Gardner Minshew's
Well,
gone. Aiden O'Connell won't start. So
they also have their star player, Max Crosby, who is a vocal leader on this team. If Adams comes back, I could see Crosby going at him. So I don't know. I think it'd be locker room poison to do that.
we'll see. We'll see.
I think Adams should go back to Green Bay because they need a wide receiver.
I think Crosby should shut his mouth because he begged for Antonio Pierce to be hired, and we all see how that went.
Antonio Pierce finished right in the middle in the Players Association votes. So players like Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, but he doesn't produce results. So, and even in his car dealership or in football.
I'll say he hires the wrong people. That is a crucial flaw for him.
But what kind of leader is Max Crosby if he pounded the table for what they got in 2024?
Well, he pounded the table for what they knew rather than the unknown. So,
But
I mean, I'll
he
give
did show
him
up for
that.
Pete Carroll, though, too.
All right. I think we might have vaguely touched on it before, but Texans wide receiver Tank Dell has gone for his second surgery, this time to repair his ACL. I believe the previous surgery was a different ligament. He had a multi-ligament injury last year that was very brutal and tough to watch. Jeff has estimated it'll probably be December before he's able to come back, if he is this year at all, which means probably the entire season. Maybe he'll come in playoffs, maybe not. If you have him on a dynasty team, you have an IR spot, he will be riding there the entire season unless you want to sell low now. I do expect him to be fairly good coming back the following season, if starting off a little slow.
Right. We will see there. Let's quickly go through the rest of the cuts here. But yeah, as you said, December or missing the regular season is most likely for Tank Dell. Cut running back Jamal Williams. That opens up the path for Kendrick Miller to be the number 2 back in New Orleans. So that
For now.
Yeah, that's got to make you happy. Well, Kamara just signed a 3-year extension in the middle of the year last year, so this hasn't even kicked in yet. So we got at least 2 more years of Kamara on the list. And by the time that's done, Kendrick Miller's rookie contract will already be up. I assume that doesn't speak well for his ability to start unless there's an injury to Kamara. That did happen last year, and Miller did not make the most of his opportunities either. But Jamal Williams is probably done-ish. Maybe he'll end up as like a 3rd running back on a team now, but I don't see him being a 1st or 2nd running back on any team going forward.
Cowboys running back number 1 next year.
It was Dowdle last year, so they do go younger. Seahawks caught wide receiver Tyler Lockett. He'll probably go back to the Raiders, you would assume, with Pete Carroll. Would be the most likely landing spot. If it's not there, I don't really know where, but we will see. Raiders cut quarterback Gardner Minshew. I think that offline you said that Colts make a lot of sense for a reunion there. So we'll see if that happens, but I could see him going to the NFC and backing up I could go see him backing up Baker Mayfield because he's a very Baker Mayfield type player. If that's the path, he could go be on the Rams because the Rams don't have Jimmy Garoppolo as of right now because he's an unrestricted free agent. So A lot of places for Gardner Minshew. I think he's a top 35 quarterback in the league. Probably not quite the starter, but he's probably one of the top backups in the league.
I would say maybe top 40, top 45. I'll give him
Okay.
that.
Yeah. And not very many of the quarterbacks coming in this year will surpass him right away either.
Yeah. Could even see Minshew go to New York if the Giants aren't able to find someone as a vet. He could be a good option there. He could even be a good option as a backup for Josh Allen too. A lot of places he could go.
They re-signed Mitchell Trubisky to like a 3-year deal already or something like that.
Do you like
Crazy.
Mitchell Trubisky?
No, but they do. And it doesn't matter what I like. It doesn't matter what I like. I would rather have Gardner Minshew, trust me, but
I bet.
I would rather have Gardner Minshew than Andy Dalton at this point. But what do we got? We got in Carolina Andy Dalton. The last cut though, Alex, is a shocker, and the Jaguars cut tight end Evan Ingram, which means that Brendan Strange is going to start moving up the draft board slowly as the replacement right now. He did pretty well in filling in for Ingram last year, so we'll see if he's able to continue it as the starter. Where do you think Evan Ingram ends up?
Man, this is a tough one because this is a pretty good tight end class. At least, day one and day two selections. So he could have a depressed value for that reason. But I mean, I can see someone that needs a tight end, bring him in. I just have a hard time figuring it out. It could be Denver Broncos, who have been looking for a tight end, but they could bring in a former Saints guy like Jawan Johnson or bring in Taysom Hill somehow. I could even see them trying to trade for the running back there. I can't even remember his name. You just said Kamara. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that the Broncos could do when bringing in a tight end. Maybe the Chargers, who have been looking for a tight end. Maybe the Rams, who have been looking for a tight end. There's a lot of guys that when I do mocks in the first round that are looking at tight end. So any one of them, Jets could bring him in too. So
Yeah,
anyone that has a need.
you make me laugh about the Kamara thing. He literally just signed the extension. The dead cap that he would leave behind alone would kill New Orleans' cap situation even further going into this year. So he's staying put, but yeah. So we'll see what happens. But his dead cap hit he would leave behind is $25 million, and his cap hit's only enough. I don't think they have another 15 million that they can be pressed against the cap. He's definite to be on the Saints roster this year.
I don't know. If you tell him, hey, we'll reunite you with Sean Payton on the Denver Broncos if you rework your deal so we don't get hit with the cap, I think he
It's
might
already
consider
been
that.
that's part of the signing bonus that's already paid, and there's already 2 void years. I don't think that they'll be able to redo it to the point where it would get low enough. That makes sense. So, and they keep kicking the can with him, and they have been for a very long time. Like next year, his cap hits 18 million, but his dead cap's 15 million. So they only save 3 million off the cap just to get rid of him next year.
I don't know if Mickey Loomis, the general manager for the Saints, is a genius or a fool. Like, is he a wizard?
He's made it
Is he a
work for this
clown?
long,
I don't know.
but they're keeping Derek Carr for the same scenario. Like they can't afford the dead cap that Derek Carr would sleep on. That's my assessment of that. But what if I know you're a big Zach Ertz fan, but what if Evan Ingram went to the Washington Commanders and was the tight end for Jaden Daniels?
I mean, it
And
would be
therefore, they don't have to draft one because they drafted Ben Sinnott last year.
it's a good spot for Ingram. It's if I was the Commanders though, I'd want Ertz over Ingram at this point because Ertz works. Ertz was very successful in that offense.
Oh
Ingram,
man,
I don't know.
the age
I
difference.
liked him as a volume guy last year, but his athleticism has dropped off a lot.
So in the season, Ingram will be 31 and Zach Ertz will be 35. So
I
I would
still
much rather get younger.
even at those numbers, Zach Ertz plays better on film than Ingram does, and that's why the Jaguars cut him because he's not living up to that contract.
Right. So, Alex, we can hop over to re-signings and extensions now. I'll quickly breeze over the kickers because kickers are people too. The Packers signed Brandon McManus to a 3-year extension, which is pretty surprising. He's made a complete comeback from his offseason drama last year, and here he is now with the Packers. And the Commanders signed kicker Zane Gonzalez to an extension. We don't know exactly how long. I assume it's only a 1-year deal at this point, but Austin Siebert was the better kicker for the Commanders last year, so I expect Zane Gonzalez to get some competition in Washington right now. I believe he's the lone kicker. All right, the big extensions now. Not surprising, Alex. The Eagles gave running back Saquon Barkley an enhanced 2-year deal worth up to $41.2 million. And the Rams, this was one that we thought was going to be off of the Rams, or at least I did early last week, but the Rams re-signed wide receiver Tutu Atwell to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Barkley was going to be on the Eagles regardless this year, so I guess we don't have to spend too much time on it, and I believe it's money well spent. And also, I believe it means that the running back market could be back as well. But the Rams re-signing Tutu Atwell, he, in theory, is penciled in the number 2 slot as long as they move off of Cooper Kupp, like all signs to point to that this year. So, what's your thoughts there?
I think Tutu Atwell knows that he wasn't going to get that good of a deal somewhere else, and I think that he's running it back with the Rams this season to try to earn a better role, especially if they move on from Cooper Kupp as they said that they would. And if that's the case, you can get a bigger payday next year. I also think Tutu Atwell getting a $10 million deal, I think that's on the market. I think players like Christian Kirk could have gotten a much better deal than people think, especially with teams that are desperate. A wide receiver like the Patriots, who have over $100 million in cap space, would outbid anybody to get a player over there. So I think teams are trading for wide receivers to get better value, even if it sacrifices picks. And I think this works for both the Rams and Tutu for the short term. Saquon, I'm glad that there's a team that's willing to give someone a pay raise for earning it. And I also think that the Eagles put the rest of the league in a bad situation with this raise, because now you have a good running back, or you're courting a good running back, you now have to pay them significantly more, which ties you up from spending on other positions. So I think this is kind of a masterclass from Harry Roseman up there, the GM for the Eagles.
Yeah, and not every running back is Saquon Barkley.
Sure. But sets
If you're
the
going to
free
pay
agent
him
market, though. If there's a good free agent, they now have to pay Saquon money.
he does, but not very many people hit the Saquon mark. Plus, it's worth up to $41.2 million. The odds that he actually makes all of his incentives probably isn't the best. But Alex, we can move on to tags and restricted / exclusive right free agent tenders. And the Raiders, as we mentioned, Gardner Minshew's been released. Now the Raiders have decided to not tender restricted free agent quarterback Desmond Ridder, so now they're just down to Aiden O'Connell on their roster. And the Bengals tag wide receiver T. Higgins for the second straight year. What are your thoughts on the T. Higgins of it all?
Well, the Bengals are very cheap. Everybody knows this, that the owners are very cheap, and they saw the price tag for wide receivers, and they saw the franchise tag was cheaper than that, so they went the franchise route while they're trying to convince them to take less than full free market deal. I still expect them. I feel like this is the baseline. The 26.5 is probably the new baseline for per year average for him. We'll see if they come to an agreement on that, but I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that they still trade him away and try to collect some assets. I know they are potentially moving on from Hendrickson, their edge rusher. Max Crosby just got like $35 million per year raise, and now there's no way they're going to pay Hendrickson that, so they're shopping him. Could go the same way with Higgins, even though Burrow's been he's been really harping on saying we have to resign this guy.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens with that, and we'll keep everyone posted what happens with that saga, but I do expect some way, shape, or form for 2025. But he's going to be super old before he hits the free agent market, and the Bengals have really depressed his value, so that's fun as well, because right now he's going to be entering Well, he'll be 26 this season. The earliest he can hit the free agent market if he plays on the tag is 27. How many people are giving big 4-year deals to 27-year-old wide receivers? So there's that. All right, Alex, do you want to go over your combine risers and fallers?
All right. So I compiled a lot of risers and fallers mixed in with my own notes as well. I just want to make sure that I capture as much totality as I could. Because I know some people only post some things and other people post different ones. But I'm going to go through position by position the notable risers and fallers. There's guys that I left off that either they didn't move at all or they are so low down my list that I don't think that they're going to be that relevant for at least 4 rounds of a rookie draft. So they're off my list for that reason. But you feel free to comment and ask a question about a particular player if you want to know. We'll just note that Travis Hunter went in as a corner, not as a wide receiver, so that kind of removes him from this list, and he didn't really do drills, so he's very neutral at this point, probably trending down in most drafts because people are afraid he's going to play too much corner. So
Yeah. He
we'll
said he wants
exclude
to play
him from.
both.
Yeah, he wants to play both. He'll probably play both.
And he was surprised and even called his agent of why he was listed as a corner. So it sounds like he's leaning toward wanting to play receiver more. And a lot of teams are approaching that as well. So I would have him master receiver because that's how are you going to keep one of the best offensive players off the field when you need points to be scored, and then go corner second.
So I don't think it's possible to fully play 100% of snaps on both sides of the ball. And what he did in college was he was a full-time corner and played packages at wide receiver on a very simplistic offense. And I expect that to be the same case in the pros. I expect him to be a corner first and play wide receiver in packages and only learn a certain set of plays. Now, if he committed himself fully to one or the other, then I think he has sky high potential at either spot. But if he's playing both, he's limiting his full upside. That's just how I view it.
All right, Alex, I will let you have the floor now.
Okay. We have our quarterback risers and fallers from the NFL Scouting Combine. I have really a sole notable riser, Tyler Shock, a quarterback out of Louisville. He scored an eye-popping 9.53 RAS, which is relative athletic score, and that's out of 10. So for a quarterback, that is pretty insane. He's 6'5", 219 pounds. He also had a very good 40, which was a 4.63. He also did very well in the throwing sessions and got some good reviews there. Now, he is someone that's kind of like Bo Nix or Penix last year, where they are multi-year starters. So he's already started for like 6 or 7 years in college. So he's got a good experience. That's no longer frowned upon. Now it kind of hones their skills and makes them a more attractive prospect. So I expect him to now be climbing on most teams' draft boards. There's a lot of fallers for the quarterback position. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, they didn't participate in drills. They did interviews. Shedeur Sanders, though, got mixed thoughts from people, saying he wasn't taking things seriously. He's kind of too cocky. He didn't do well in meetings. But for me, he's kind of still in the middle. The real fallers are Will Howard, the college championship winning quarterback out of Ohio State. He did very poorly in the drills, never really got comfortable, and I don't think that he completed a single downfield pass. I know there's people talking him up. There's notable people talking him up saying he's a Josh Allen type player. He is not. I don't think he's going to go even day 2. I think he's a day 3 prospect, and this kind of showcases why. Jalen Milroe, super athletic quarterback with big arm. He didn't decide to test, and I think that was a huge mistake, and he decided to throw, which was a second huge mistake, because if he tested, everyone would talk about how fast he was and how athletic he was. He didn't do that. Instead, he threw, and he was wildly inaccurate. Yes, he has a cannon, but it's very reminiscent of Richardson from last year as well. And I just don't see teams viewing this guy that highly. Someone might take a chance on the athleticism, but I don't think anyone's going to make the Anthony Richardson decision again. So I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he'll improve in the pro day. The other thing that's interesting about him, his Senior Bowl his hands were measured at 8 inches, at 8 3/4 inches. At the combine, they magically grew an inch, Jeff. I don't know what kind of pills he takes, but I really want to find. I don't understand the discrepancy. Maybe someone recorded it wrong last time. Maybe he did a lot of push-ups with weight on his back and made his hands swell up. I don't know. All right, but let's power through these. Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback, looked like he tried to throw the ball too hard to prove how strong he was. That just made him inaccurate. I don't think he had a very good combine. So outside of that, it's pretty much it for the quarterbacks. Running back risers, I don't know exactly how much it is rising, but Omaron Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, Trey Henderson, they all proved that they are valid of top picks, high second round grade, maybe low first round grade. They all did well. They all finished in the 4.4s for the 40s and had explosive measurements everywhere else. Bayshol Tuten is one of the biggest risers because he had the fastest 40 time, the running back out of Virginia Tech. The 40 time, he had the fastest split, which is a 10-yard split, which is 1:49, 40-inch vertical. He's the only running back to clear that. He also had a nice long jump as well, broad jump, which is 10 foot 10 inches. So the only thing for him is his shuttle time. What was kind of mediocre. RJ Harvey, the running back out of UCF, DJ Giddens, the running back out of Kansas State, and Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. They all had good combines and good testing. They all look like running backs that are very interesting for fantasy purposes, but it's kind of hard to rank them because there's so many this year that are in the same area. But a lot of these guys are going to depend on where their landing spot is. So these are guys to keep an eye on. My running back fallers. Caleb Johnson tested poorly. His athleticism score was abysmal. He ran a slow 40. He ran slow drills. I think he's fallen. A lot of people like him still. He didn't move much for me because I already anticipated this by watching his film. Devin Neal, who has good production numbers in college, also was relatively slow. That was kind of expected for him, so didn't really move much for me, but it makes him more of a 4th round pick. Jordan James, the running back out of Oregon, looks like a Bucky Irving clone. He literally followed Bucky Irving. He ran a little bit slower of 40 time with a 4.55. He's also short, but I think he's someone that looks better on film, could have a Bucky Irving type impact, being drafted in the middle rounds. So I think he's someone to keep an eye on still, despite the combine. Ollie Gordon, the running back out of Oklahoma State, he also had a very poor combine, and I think he probably had the most disappointing combine because he needed to look good with a mixed year this past year in college. He had a 4.61 40 time, and his splits were ranked for the 3rd lowest. He does not look that great right now. Maybe he'll turn around the pro day, but he's someone I'm probably sliding down on my dynasty rankings. Moving on to the wide receivers, everyone is abuzz with Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. Didn't have that great of production at Texas, but he had the fastest 40 time with a 4.29 and fastest split time, 1.49. He didn't do much else, but all everyone was talking about was his speed and how he now might be the number 1 wide receiver in the draft. I don't buy into that, but he is the fastest, and I think he's still around wide receiver 4 or 5 out of this group. The guys that I really liked before the combine, I still really like after the combine, especially the Iowa State wide receivers, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Jaden Higgins is a 6'4", 214-pound, blistering fast wide receiver, and he proved that. He's very explosive. He had a nice broad jump and vertical. So 39 inches vertical, 10 feet, 8 inches broad jump. He ran a 4.47 40 time, and he has the 3rd longest arm length with 33 and 1/3 inches out of this rookie group. Jalen Noel is his teammate in college. I think he's kind of like a Jaden Reed type. He's 5'10", 195 pounds, and he ran a 4.39 40. He had a 41.5 vertical, which led all wideouts, and I think he led all wideouts in the broad jump as well with 11 feet 2 inches and bench 23 times on top of that. He's a rare combination of athletic speed and strength. So I like both these guys. They're day 2 guys in the NFL draft. They are low end round 1 or high end round 2 picks in rookie drafts. I think you'll really like Jaylen Noel based on some of the wide receivers that you've liked in the past. Jalen Royals, wide receiver out of Utah State, 6 foot, 205 pounds. He ran a 4.42 40, 1.49 10-yard split, and he has good tape. Elic Ayo-Manor, wide receiver out of Stanford. He's 6'2", 206 pounds, ran a 4.44 40 time, had a good vertical of 38.5 inches, and a broad jump of 10 feet 7 inches. He has really good tape as well. I like him. We have some deep threats coming up. So Chimere Dike, wide receiver out of Florida. Ty Felton, wide receiver out of Maryland. Torrey Holton, wide receiver out of Colorado State, and Dante Thornton Jr., wide receiver out of Tennessee. All of them had very fast 40 times, very good verticals. They all have high RAS scores and could be guys going in high day 3 that could be very beneficial to teams. And in rookie drafts, I would expect they go low 2s, high 3s. These are all guys to keep an eye on. I will point out that Dante Thornton Jr., while he had an injury-ridden year, he's also 6'5" and ran a 4.35 40, which is a record, and had a 9.83 RAS. Fallers, Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon, was 154 pounds, and he ran a 4.51 40 time. He didn't do well in anything else, but kind of salvaged it a little bit in 3-cone and broad jump. He's someone who's falling, likely day 3 pick now. Nick Nash, wide receiver out of San Jose State, also had a slow time, a 4.57. He just tested poorly all around, finishing towards the bottom, and had small hands measured as well. Isaiah Bond is a small faller. Just because he bragged about breaking the record for the speed, and then he ended up finishing 0.2 of a second short. So instead of the 4.2s, he finished a 4.4 140, but he's still a very fast wide receiver. He just doesn't have a lot of production, and I think he's still a little raw. Ricky White, he also did not test very well either. He said he was going to do the 4.4s in the 40 time, but he finished with a 4.62, and he had a slow split as well. He tested amongst the 5 bottom receivers in Indianapolis. Tight ends, there's less names here. So Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon, had the best day. 6'5", 247 pounds. He has long arms. He had the fastest 40 time out of the tight end group with a 4.63. He had the best split as well. He had a 39-inch vertical, 2-inch broad jump, which was 3rd in the class. He did that despite being heavier than most. Same thing with Jalen Conyers, tight end out of Texas Tech. He's not as tall, but he's 260 pounds, and he had a 4.74 40-yard dash. Tested very well all around. And he is a much heavier guy, so that was much more impressive. The only real faller out of this group is Gunnar Helm, the tight end out of Texas. That is 100% due to rolling his ankle and testing through it. So he didn't do very well. People were wondering why. And it came out later that he rolled his ankle, which was swollen, and he still did everything. So I expect all of that to improve on his pro day and him to not be a faller from that point on. That rounds out the entire group. All right. Well, that does it for this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2 Fantasy and with our handle at N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.